All right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back at Max on Color. Thank you very much for joining us today. And today, Dr. Sassi is also joining us. How are you, Dr. Sassi?
I'm fine, and I look forward to our discussion. And I hope you both have a good time as well and feel well, healthy.
Who's both? Who's both? You already spoiled it.
Oh. Sorry.
No problem. I'm just teasing you. In this episode, Diego is back, and let us say hello to Diego. Hey, Diego, welcome back.
How are you?
It's great to see you, man.
Yeah, it's great to be back here again.
How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm still in Spain. The weather is every day hotter here.
Wow.
We have today like 33 Celsius. It's really hot. It's really hot.
It is getting hot as well here in Germany, but today we're having this big storm coming on our way. So I hope I won't be losing connections during the live stream.
But that's good because at least you're going to get some water.
Yeah, love it. So Diego is back today with us, and the plan for today is actually we gave you the footage last week. And it was uploaded in the Dropbox. If you take a look at it, if you want to, you can still submit it to us, and we'll talk about it in this episode. There are some people already submitting the grade, and we'll be talking about that. But before we go to the show, let me just do a little bit housekeeping here, and let me share my screen. Second. So if you want to learn more about Maxon, you can go to maxon.net and click Events, News, and go to Event page, and you will see that there are plenty of events hosted by Maxon coming up. So for example, at the moment we're also doing 3D motion show. And next, this Friday, tomorrow, Hashi and Seth will be back with some very interesting topics and in their VFX and Chill show. And also ongoing on that, there's also demystifying post-productions on Redshift. So if you want to learn about Redshift and want to learn about ZBrush, there are webinars going on in Maxon site. So apart from that, if you want some free t-shirts, I promise you that, because last week I didn't manage to give you the code, but today, don't worry, I'll give you the code. So if you want to get a free t-shirt, I'll post you the link to the free t-shirt later on. Feel free to go to Maxon merch store and use the code that you see in this screen, Redshift Challenge, all in the capitals. And then you can use that code to enter the shop, and using that code, you will be able to get 1 free t-shirt, and the price will be deduced to 0. So now let's go back to Diego. And Diego, what do you plan for today, man? While doing that, I will post the link into the chat. Are you looking forward for today's fruitful discussions on how we approach color grading?
Yeah, I mean, actually today is a great session because, we have been doing webinars for almost like 2 years, and we are all the time talking about what we do, about how we grade, about how good can be. But today is the time, okay, let's see what the people are doing.
Yeah, so I'm curious too, because in the end, it's benefit for us as well, because by looking at what people are doing, that's actually how we colorists learn. And yeah, by submitting that, it means like you guys did a great job to to submit the grade and to have it reviewed on the show. This is not by any means that we will be saying that this is wrong and this is right, this is how you should do stuff. No, it's literally for improving our eyes as well. And by the way, if you submit the grade for today, there are T-shirts waiting for you, and that T-shirt is exactly this one I'm wearing at the moment. So I'll be sending you that T-shirt if you submit the grade, and I'll contact you per email, right? So that you can give me your home address, and I'll send you the T-shirt. So without further ado, let us see the clip that you graded last week, Diego, and then after that, we'll see the first. Oh, did you hear that?
What is it?
Thunder, the thunderstruck. Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't hear anything.
Oh, okay. Let me play the clip that Diego graded last week, and then after that we'll go into the first submissions, right?
Alberto Gonzalez. I am a painter, empirical painting. I sell my own painting in San Diego's Square always, and I am a professional tour guide. I am from Cartagena. I born here, and I live here, and I think I will die here. I paint Cartagena, but no Cartagenians, because the governments don't want Cartagenians inside the old city. So I paint, you can see, a street, balconies, everything, but no people, because like that I should.
So Diego, that's just a brief preview of the clip. It seems like how do you call it? The way you say it, like every time you see it, you find another thing. That's exactly how I feel as well whenever I grade, and it's like very hard to release to like, you know, say like, okay, it's done and submit it. You know, that's a very hard phase for me personally.
Yeah, but actually that's good. It's good to say, okay, submit it, that's it. But the problem is that when you look at it again, and then in another screen, different as yours, and then in a cell phone. But the worst thing is when you look at it at the cinema.
Oh
That's when
man,
you say
yes.
like, wow. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's actually one of the nightmares we have as a colorist. Is the thing of the screens.
Mm-hmm.
The screens look different. Right now you are previewing the clip via OBS, then go to YouTube.
Oh yes, you have to count for the compressions algorithm and everything else. That's for sure. If you want to how do you call it? If you want to try in the audience, if you want to try, you can just like how do you call it? Render out your grade and then view it locally using any player that you have. And then after that, upload it to Dropbox and then view it online. It looks totally different.
That's a nightmare. That's a nightmare.
That's a nightmare.
But I mean, at some point you have to say like, okay, it's okay, relax.
Yes.
Relax, take it easy, let it be, and that's it.
Yeah.
I went with
Let
this-
us go.
I
Yeah,
went
Dr.
with-
Sassi.
Okay. I went with one movie for 1 year on a festival cycle, and every cinema had a different light setup in the projector. Every time it was different, and it's you have no idea when it is really right, when it was how you intended it. Some cinemas had even the light bulb to 50%, and then it looks completely different.
Yeah.
So don't get crazy over it. The variety is really there, and it's not your fault.
I saw a very nice post. I don't know if I can find it, but Matt Reeves, the director of Batman, he sent a note directly to cinema and mentioning, please play the movie in this luminance level. So he's like really mentioning it. It's like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
but
but
in a nicer
people
word,
will-
not like what I said. Maybe it's like, you know, to experience the most, like to the fullest. Please play in this luminance level or something like that.
yeah,
So-
yeah. But that's actually like the reason we use a calibrated monitor.
Oh yes.
Because I mean, it's impossible to get 100% accuracy about what you're going to grade and what you're going to see in all the screens. But with a calibrated monitor, from 10 monitors, at least in 6 or 5, they are going to be similar.
Exactly. The way I like to see that is like when I mean I'm not an audio engineer, but normally when you want to mix audio, you need like a very flat EQ response of a speaker, you know, so that whenever you have like a bassy speaker or a trebly speaker, it will play nicely somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
And these people jump into the car and listen to their own sound with the car speakers and in the studio and everywhere else just to be certain it has the bandwidth of quality,
Yeah.
similar to color.
It's similar to color. It's like we watch in many screen as possible as well. So, and
yeah, yeah.
GG in the audience also said that exactly. I graded on computer and then showed results on phone and had the feeling, why did I send that? Totally, man. Totally.
That's a big problem. That's a big problem, and that's something that we have to live with.
Yeah.
That's something that we have to live with. It's like at some point, many say like, okay, I know I cannot do anything more. You cannot control every screen in the world. You cannot control cinema, so that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, alone if you have a black wall or a gray wall in your grading suite makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, Gigi mentioned something. Right now, more people review the things in phone, and in phone it's like, hey, you can have like the screen protection, and that makes you the screen warmer, a little bit more like magenta, something
Yes.
like that.
That's nightmare.
And you're going to review it in a park or in the bus or in a
Yeah.
metro. So it's like, man, it's something that you cannot control.
I think some grading facilities even like handing out calibrated iPad, for example, for the client, like to review their piece.
Yeah, many facilities use like iPads, and actually the app, a special app for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go to the second clip then, to the first submissions. And I think this is from Brian Smith. And let's see what Brian have.
I mean, so first, when you, it's like I always have this question. It's like, why film? Why film, and what kind of film do you want to emulate? Is the first thing you have to ask. It's like, are you going to just put a lot that is going to give you like the feeling of a film, or are you going to create grain or do more, something like that? So I always think that first ask that what part of a film, that film is really big. It's a huge spectrum of many possibilities. What part do you want? Yeah, and that's the reason that's the thing. When actually I have some students that say, okay, I want to emulate film. My first question is which part. Then we actually hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, in doing film emulations, like what you said previously, Diego, I think that's really fair if you want to, like, consider all the aspect that goes from like the pre-productions until post-productions, right? Like how the film was shot, in which stock film was shot, and I think, like, all those things matters, and thus it like the terms that we use a lot make it look cinematic and make it look filmic. And what is filmic?
Yeah, that's the first thing. It's going to have grain.
Yeah.
It's going to have the blacks a little bit like up. Uh, how the colors are going to look. It is going to be desaturated, saturated. So there are many options. There are many options, and I always think that, for example, in this case, I see that actually the colors shift a little bit. For example, the blue that was a little bit magenta in the original now is more greeny.
Yeah.
There are some reds that now are like a little softer, that now are orange. So I found a shift in the colors, and in some ways good because you are getting like another feeling of the original colors like that were captured. But what I found is that there is still not a piece. I just found like good shots, but there is not still like a full movie that
Yeah.
says to you like something happened. Also, in the last meeting we talked about color management and that we had a starting point that in some ways is like moving the log image to a ACES color space, and then from the ACES color space it's going to map the image to a Rex Veronine monitor. So in this case, what I found is that he graded in a unmanaged color workflow. So that's the reason that most of the image still looks locked. They still look so flat, locked, gray, with a lot that is giving a kind of feeling. But I feel that is still more. You need to still push more,
Yeah.
like be more risky of what you are doing. In some cases, I found that, and also I found that in some parts the character, yes, there is not still full match between the shots, and also the character lose a little bit of potential in the match, something like that.
Yeah, I think what what missing in our brief last week is that we missed to say, like, in which directions we want the grade to be, right? Like more into more like a naturalistic way, or a more filmic way. But hey, that's great, and that's totally fine that everybody submits their own take on the piece. And therefore, I would like to thank you, Brian, and I'll contact you after the show for your address so that I can send you the T-shirt, right? So
Let
yes,
me add
Dr. Sassi.
something. First of all, to submit something to a show where your work might be ripped apart is a huge bravery from the start.
Oh, that's
And
a really brave move,
and
Brian.
and I congratulate him to him. What we haven't discussed is how to get from a one-piece QuickTime movie into the grading, because that's already a huge challenge to use maybe the AutoCAD, to know even that feature. So you have the clips, how to group them, and so on. And I think what I normally do when I see something is not that I go with my own idea and say, hey, I would do this, I would do that, because that would be not okay from my point of view, even if it is correct, like Diego has a lot of good points. But I try to understand what was the intention of the guy who or girl who did all the work. And what I got from the clips that we saw, it's like a promised filmic impression. As you said, it's a little bit lock. The continuity is to a certain degree there. It can be improved, and we have all our own little ideas about it. My tiny little critique point would be this was a movie about a painter with very strong colors, and there's, I think, no discussion about this. He used pretty much only prime colors or some kind of mixtures. He didn't tint or blend or something like that. There was not a lot of variation in his colorization. And the whole environment, how it was filmed, was also very colorful. I agree with Diego, I missed that a little bit. But again, when we go from our own taste, then we shut ourselves up from what is the intent of someone else. On the other hand, as a cinematographer, you talk about editing and color inside your head while you're filming. So you need to know already what you want, and to lead the audience eye with color even is one aspect that we haven't discussed. I would love to see the second before we go maybe there. But again, it's a huge bravery to submit here and get from one of the masters just a cold shower from the start. And I hope he will grow into that, because what he is doing is he submits something and he wants to grow. Otherwise he wouldn't submit. Just to show it here off is not really something that makes sense. So I think it was great so far.
And that's actually the best point. I mean, it's like it's better to listen to different opinions than to just grade it by your own and never show it to someone. Never show it to someone. And we actually were talking before the show with Dr. Sathi and Max that how we can judge something as color if it's so subjective. Like, how can I say if something is good if something is bad?
Especially if you don't have client brief. if there's no client node, in this case, like there is no client node, it's like do whatever you want. Yeah.
The punishment is freedom, as the saying is.
So
and actually in my students sometimes they say to me, hey, but I like this. And I say to them, no, I don't like that. I don't like that. And they say to me, but it's my color, it's something subjective.
yes.
And in a way, I say like, okay, now we're getting a discussion.
Yes. So in that
target is
note,
always
I would like to show a little bit, because I think last week we, I don't know if probably Diego showed that as well, but I think repetitions doesn't hurt, and repetitions what makes you better. So if you like, Diego, I would like to show how you can conform the clips into Resolve and detect the edits and so on and so forth. So later on, if you guys want to try it after this sessions, you can also do that, right?
Yeah.
So let me share my screen. So we are in Resolve, and you can still see the code for today's t-shirt. Let me just turn that off. So in Resolve, there's like this tool called the scene cut detector. And then what you can use is that, what you can do is that, oh, there's an echo in the sound. Hang on a second. Maybe it was me because I forgot my headphone, guys.
Or maybe it was me. Hello.
So at least we reduce it. At least now I'm with headphones, so no problem.
All right.
Okay, where are we? Conforming, right? You can use scene cut detector. There are two ways in using scene cut detector. The first is that you go to the clip where you want to detect, in this case, and then you select that and right click, and then in the menu you will see scene cut detections. So if you click that, you will see this interface with 3 different screens, and what you can do is that you can select auto scene detect, right? And then it will go through your clips, and then it will how do you call it, detect the edit points on your clip. So for example, how to tell if this is the correct edit point, like the little cheat sheet that I always how do you call it, go with, is that whenever the screen at the leftmost is different and then the two screens on the right the same, then it's a correct cut, because the screen at the left is like the last frame, and then the one in the middle is the current frame, and the one on the right is the upcoming frame, so the next frame. So if you see like the two screen on the right the same and the one in the left is a little bit different, then most probably you are correct. But there's
Can you go
an
to the left?
easier, yes, but there is an easier way to do scene cut detections. Yes, Dr. Sassi.
Now, completely to the left, to the starting point, where you have a bunch of green lines.
Exactly, and this is
that
what
happens.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Go on, no problem.
This is where it fades in, and
Exactly.
the application had the idea. There are
Yes.
several tips, and you show please how to fix that.
And my personal way in doing this is that you can select a frame where you just, first of all, let me just delete everything from here, like delete this edit points, the one that Resolve detect, and then the idea is that you delete all of this and then you create one. But my personal method that I like the most is that not using this scene cut detections, but using another one that is the second method to do that. And thank you for
Alright.
pointing out the
Yeah, but I have to
problem.
say, Max,
Yes.
that in this moment, I mean, the one that you're going to show now is a studio version. It's part of a studio.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's I'm not aware about, because the second method is that it is using the neural engine so that it detects the contrast level better in the clip.
Yeah, so
And-
actually, the first method is based on the luminance, and it's giving your cuts. And what
Yeah.
you have to do is have to go like cut by cut and
Yeah.
check is everything okay. But there is actually one problem with that method, is that when you import the clips, you are not going to have handles. They are going to
Yes.
import clip by clip, clip by clip. So there is another workaround that we used to do, is if you go to the options menu at the top right of the interface, that one, you can save this as a EDL. So when you save it as a EDL, you save the cuts, and then you import the clips, and then import the EDL, and it will like cut you everything, and you will have handles.
Nice.
For example, I remember that I was doing this in Flame long time ago. Flame didn't have this option, and what we were doing is that we needed to grade, but we were doing like sync detection and then export a EDL from Resolve directed to Flame, and then having the cuts. Because at that time, Flame didn't have the cut detection that now have it.
Wow.
That is also good.
And IDL stands for?
Edit decisions list.
Thank you.
The second method that I would like to show you is that it's like an easier version. If you have Studio, it will be nicer as well. So you can just like import the clips that you have already that you want to work with, and then bring it to the media file, and then create a new timeline on that. In this case, it's timeline 5. And then go to the edit page, and here you can go to, where is it? Is it in the edit or in the timeline?
I actually never find it. I just put help and type
is-
sync detection, and that's
It is
it.
actually in the timeline, Diego.
All right,
It
that's
is
good.
actually in the timeline. In the timeline, and that detect scene cuts. And it's a much more precise way to do that. Give me some minutes. Give it some minutes. It will do the job. and boom, it's done. So for example, if I view everything, if I go scene by scene,
and even the start is perfect.
even the
It's
start
not
is
cut it in
perfect.
5 or 6 different mini
Yes.
clips.
Yes.
Cool.
So now I can just go to my color page and I can start coloring my stuff, my
Now,
piece.
first we
So
group things.
exactly. Thank you, Dr. Sassi, because that's actually the very first thing what I normally do. Do we want to cover the way I grade this, Diego? Do we have time to do that?
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. I'd like to show you the way I approach the clip. In this case, what I normally do is that I normally group the cut or the clips based on the scenes. So in this case, we have like the A roll, the talking head, just 2 of them, and right click.
There should be 5 of these. Should be more.
Should be more. It's the shorter versions, right?
Ah, okay.
It's the shorter versions.
Sorry for the
No problem.
misinformation.
No problem. So what I normally do is that select, like, I mean, you can do this in the timeline, or if you want to, you can go to Lightbox. It's right here, top right, and just click Lightbox and select like this to clip and add into a new group. In this case, I already done that. So let me just like add into a new group, group 5, and Alberto. And then I will group the, how do you call it, the B-roll together. For instance, this one, and just group it add into a new group, group 6.
Is that exactly the clip that you had provided to everyone?
I think so.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
exactly. I don't know if it's shorter, but I don't know, maybe. I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah.
Just if there are different versions that our audience is not confused.
So what I'm gonna do is that normally when doing this, it's like I like to work in a color managed way. That is like to help me being more accurate in all of that. So what I can do is that I can, I'm already in ACES. So let me just switch to the timeline that I already prepared probably to make it more easy. So
you went already to the settings.
I actually already grade this, but let me just like disable everything so that I can talk you through about it. So what I did is that after grouping that, I went into the color management settings, and I set it to ACCCT because I like to work in ACCCT. And it's like really nothing, how do you call it? It's not a must. You can also use another color management method if you want to. There are like DaVinci color management, like Diego showed you last week, how to set up like the DaVinci color management. And in this case, I would like to show you how you can set ACES from DaVinci YRGB. Like the default color science in Resolve is DaVinci YRGB. And if you want to set up ACES, you can simply go to color management, and from the drop down, you can select either ACCC and ACCCT. ACCC stands for color corrections, and CCT color corrections with a toe. It means like there's a lift on the shadow area. It means like if you want to have a more detail on the black, it can accommodate you better. So in this case, I go with ACCCT, and there's a versions of ACES that you can use, and I think it's always wise to use like the newer versions. And then
because it has compression. Yes.
Exactly. And in this ACES 1.3, there's like this checkbox apply ACES reference gamut compress, and I want to use that, and use color space aware grading tools. And this footage was shot in using which Blackmagic camera, Diego?
It was in the 6K, but I don't know if you can find it there.
No, it's only 4 and 4.6.
Okay. So
yeah, that's actually a good point. I mean, that way probably what I will do if I will grade on ACE is probably I will go to the Blackmagic forum.
Yeah.
And in Blackmagic forum ask, hey, I have the 6K camera. Do I select the 4.6K or the 4K film? Because the result is going to be different for sure.
Exactly, for sure.
Yeah,
Totally.
the starting point is going to be different.
And in this case,
confused.
In this case, I already took like the decisions without asking Diego first, which is not very nice. Don't do that, guys, by the way. Always, if you don't like know what type of camera you're working with, always ask with the with a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And especially when you get a QuickTime file from it, maybe there was already a transformation in it, so the camera might be not even at all any indicator anymore.
Yeah.
So in this case, the input transform is Blackmagic Design 4K Gen 3. And I want to output it to Rec 709 because that's the monitor that I am working with. And you can just press save. And the first thing that I normally do is that let me change to the empty timeline before. So I normally go to the the timeline level to create like the general look there, and it can be like it can be using LUT or it can be made up by yourself. There are three things that I normally always take in mind whenever I approach like a footage to grade is that the contrast level, the saturations level, and the amount of textures in the clip. Either you want to add or you want to remove. So what I did is if I go back, what I did here in the timeline level is that I established a contrast level using just a simple S-curve. And that is just to bring the highlight down and then the shadow down and then the highlight up. And before before the S-curve, I do my looks, and that is simply just by using Magic Bullet Looks. And in this case, what I did in Magic Bullet Looks is that actually I just add saturations. Like I just want to bring the available colors in the clip like up. And in this case, I use the color remap tool and then change the color model into LAB and turn the preserve luminance into 100. So if you know LAB is a color model that consists of 3 different channels. Like the L channel is responsible for the luminosity of the image, and then the A and B channel is responsible for the chrominance. So in the A channel, if you put positive value, the image will become magenta, and if you put negative value, the image will become green. And in the B channel, it's like the opposite, similar like in A channel, but instead of magenta and green, it operates within yellow and blue. So what I did is that I just create 4 different chips. Magenta map into itself, green map into itself, so does yellow and blue. And here in the magenta, I just like reduce the amount of saturations in the magenta. It means that the tool will detect less saturated magenta and then boost it. Same with green, yellow, and blue. So without looks, it looks like that. And then after that, what I did is that I do the temperature and add a density, soften the image, and then add the grain. Now it looks bad, really bad, because none of this node is um, active. Because the way I do that, the way I handle my exposure change and everything, is in this clip based. So in order to make the clip looks like correctly exposed, I use this and then that. So if I enable everything, it will bring me into this territory, sorry, into this level.
So what actually are you doing in the pre-clip?
Sorry?
In the pre-clip, you have a color space transform, or what are you doing there?
In the pre-clip, it's actually just Magic Bullet Looks again. And what I did in the
Alright.
Magic Bullet Looks is that I added optical diffusions to make things like, how do you call it, softer. And this is just like using, it's like putting a filter, a diffusion filter in front of your lens. So if I walk you through, let me walk you through again the process of the development process. So what I did is that first I create the contrast level, and in this case, like I don't have any gray card. I see that the asphalt is gray enough, and I'll pick that as my mid-gray point. And then from here I'll boost the highlight and crunch the shadow a little bit, but I want to keep the highlight somewhere, the midtone somewhere in the middle. And I can just tweak the, how do you call it, the edit points, the points here in my curve, right?
Yeah.
So, and then after that, before that, actually, I want to handle my saturations. And then I can use Magic Bullet Looks like what I showed you, but there is another way that you can do that inside Resolve if you want to like bring saturations, like bring whatever available color in the clip and just boost it. There are plenty ways of to do that. I mean, you can use color boost to do that. You can use saturations to do that. But my preferred method to do that is simply to switch the color model from RGB and go to HSL. HSL stands for hue, saturations, and luminance. And in this node, I will deactivate channel 1 and channel 3. It means like the active channel at the moment is only the saturations channel, right? So if I go to my lift and gamma and gain, if I put Luma Mix into 0, and I can use my gain tool to simply boost my saturations. And it looks pretty good. I mean, this is before the saturations, and that is after the saturations. So it's just bring all the saturation, the available color in the clip, and then just boost it. And I think it looks a little bit different if I just use saturations, for example.
Yeah,
Actually, it's not so much different.
So one of the things about adding saturation is that you have to think about, always think on the depth, depth. It's like saturation is actually not how can I say, it's not something natural in an image. It's not something natural. So when you add saturation, if you add saturation using the Resolve like normal tools, saturation, all the colors from the image are going to be saturated.
Yes.
So that means that, for example, if you have strong colors, they will be the strongest one. And also the other ones will be saturated.
Yes.
But always when you add saturation, think on the depth. Think on the different fields that you can add. And always think on grading, like the way you look. Which colors are more saturated? The ones that are closer or the ones that are pretty far away? So always think about it. When you change the color model to HISB, That's actually a better way to add saturation,
Yes. Now
but
it
always
makes
look at
me.
the different results. Always
Yes.
look at the different results.
Thank you, Diego.
And
If,
and the
if I may,
scene
Dr.
is
Sassi, if I may,
yeah,
before
yeah,
I
please.
lost my train of thought, before
Sorry.
I changed to SSL, right? Because that's actually not very nice, as Diego pointed out. I think the better way, as Diego pointed out, is HSV. And then what the difference is in HSL, if you boost a color, if you boost some color, if it gets brighter, it will become white, and if you reduce the luminosity of the color, it will become dark. But is in HSV, it is like shining a bright light into a color when you are adding like the signal, the saturations. Let me show you that. So I'll go to HSV and then just have channel 2 activated. And in Luma Mix, turn it to 0. So it looks, how do you call it? It looks different than what I did inside HSL. So yeah, Diego, thank you very much for pointing that out, man.
And I would think that one model, since we are going into HDR area at one point, one model where it goes just to white because it is clipping in integer values,
Yeah.
it's not longer something that does that make sense?
Yeah.
One model looks like an ice cone, is flat on the top, everything is saturated, and the older
Yes.
model, it goes then back to, it's like two ice cones on top of each other. It starts with black, it ends with white, and in between the colors go spread out. And that's a model that I would try to avoid in the future. You will find it not very often in applications.
Yeah, and what I will say also is try to do both, safe and still. Also do the normal saturation and look at the results and
always
compare the
compare it.
results.
And always
I
compare
mean,
the
in some
results.
other,
Yeah.
probably, I mean, I always think that grading is, in that part is logic. And what you say, Dr. Sassi, is okay, the logic is saying to me this. But suddenly, you find that probably the normal saturation will give you a better result. And you say, hey, it's giving me something good. So always save a still and compare. Compare. That's actually the best thing. The best thing is like, people always ask me, so what are the tools that you always use? It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I mean,
So like
always
the
there.
desert island tools. If you are stranded in the desert, what kind of tools did you bring?
Yeah, and
In
actually
the
that
desert,
way,
you
the
need,
way, yeah, yeah, doctor.
in the desert, you have different Sfumato, as the term is, depth perspective. This scene here that Diego and shot was on the ocean. And so you have a lot of moisture in the air. That means the desaturation is much faster there than when you have dry air. And so the scene that is shot during the interview should have in the background very little saturation compared to a desert scene where you have heat waves, but there's not a lot of moisture in the air, like little particles that spread the light, and everything gets mixed, like with diffusion, for example, that you have introduced. And diffusion is there pretty good in this scene as a decision.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I will say something about that I really like about the actually the node tree that you show us, Max,
yes.
is that in some way I like the pre-clip because you already like create some diffusion in the starting point.
Yeah.
You already create some look in a natural scene,
That's
some
that's
small details.
yeah.
some
That's
small
actually like
details.
the how do you call it? It's just like mimicking the way people normally shoots. Is that normally the diffusions happen before the lens, and then it goes to the camera. But it's different because theoretically it's already a debayered clip. It's gonna be different. But I think putting the the diffusion, something that you do with the lights before color corrections happening in the clip level is a better approach rather than putting it on the way in the timeline level, which happen after the color corrections.
That's nice.
So-
I like it. I like it.
We have a second submissions, Diego, but this second submissions, I think this is from Greg Bolela. And Greg, if you're in the audience, shout out to you, man. Thank you very much for submitting your piece. And Greg did a little bit different. What he showcased is that he wants he submit a different footage, so he's not using the footage that we provided, but it looks great, and I love it personally. And he mentioned that he color grade that using Magic Bullet Suite, and it was done in Final Cut Pro. So that's really interesting, Greg. So if I can, if I may, let me go to my clips and let me play the clips for you guys. So here you go, a clip from Greg. It's a animations piece, by the way, so it looks really nice. Yeah, Rocco in space. Greg, you rock, man. Thank you very much. I wish you are here with us so you can talk a little bit about the way you approach it. But I really like it. I think it operates within the how do you call it, the complementary color. So the subject is a little bit in the warm side, and then the background is a little bit in the how do you call it, cool side. And Action Movie Kids just shout in the comment, can I keep him? Of course. No problem, Greg. This is really great that you submit something. Doesn't matter if it's like the clip that we provided or your own animations piece, and that's really nice of you that you do that. So Diego, do you want to say something about that?
I mean, yeah, I do. I like it. I like it because it's something completely different that we didn't expect. But I mean, I'm not a 3D expert, but I like the character. I like the way it moves. Probably the camera movement is a
Yeah.
little bit strong.
If I may
I see.
say something about the grade, is that probably the contrast ratio between the subject and then the background is probably the one that I want to pay attention more. I mean, not that I'm good at that, but it means like it probably I want to isolate my subject more and then make it a little bit popped out from the background. It means like I can reduce the exposure of the background and then increase the lighting on the subject. Probably that's the only. Otherwise than that, man, it looks great.
Yeah, and what I will say also about is that sometimes when you do 3D animation and you want to grade them, colors are so perfect. So destroy a little bit your colors, put some gray, destroy a little bit because color in real life are not so saturated, are not so like like that. So destroy a little bit. Your grading needs to be more destroying than amplifying.
Yeah.
That way.
And normally what happened in the 3D is that the edges and everything, it looks so perfect and so sharp, and that's probably the thing that I want to like attack first. It's just to soften it a little bit, and there are ways to soften things. Let me show you my screen if I may. So So for example here, if we want to create something, like say for example, if I want to do like a print film look emulations, what I can do is that I can just drop the LUT that I have with Resolve and then start workings from there. So in this case, we have the 2383 D55, and since this is, we are still in ACES, right? So let me just work in normal DaVinci YRGB, right? So if you understand the LUT that come with Resolve, the LUT requires a specific input color space, and then it will output your footage into a specific color space as well. So in this case, the LUT that come with Resolve is requiring that the clip should be in the Cineon film log, and we can do that easily just by using a color space transformations. And here I can mention that this clip is coming from red, white, gamut, RGB, and the transfer function would be the rec log 3G10 and change it into rec 709, and the output gamma is Cineon film log, right? But then you may ask, hey Max, how do I know about that? If this like the correct one, or I mean, if you go to your LUT directory and then open file locations, for example, and inside the file locations, you can open it with a node editor. So for example, here I have Notepad++, and you can see that it requires the input to be in Cineon film log, and it will output to rec 709 gamma 2.4, right? So that's the way you can check what your LUT requires you to do.
And what you are showing actually, Max, is really, really important. It's like LUTs are max. They are expecting something and they are going to give you something.
Yes.
So that's actually the problem when you find a LUT in internet and you say, okay, let's do with this LUT, I don't know, transformer or something like that. It's like there's going to be a problem. If you don't know what the LUT expects and what is going to give it you, that is going to be a problem. That is going to be a problem.
Exactly.
So
I mean, if you encounter any LUT, anything in the internet, the first thing that you have to say or ask to the seller is that what color space does this LUT requires, and what color space it outputs my clips into. I think
and that's the reason you actually changed from ACES to DaVinci YRGB, because in ACES the LUT will not work. That
exactly.
And Rec 709 is pretty much on the way out from my point of view. Rec 2020 is pretty much the new standard, and in the moment you put a LUT like this in, you have a huge bottleneck in the whole pipeline. So I know I stress everyone, and I know everyone with my constant reminder on that, but Rec 709 as RGB is an output format. Don't use it inside of the pipeline, because you crash everything down. When you come from a red camera, I would think it's a crime.
It is. It's so small.
That's why you put it right at the end of the node chain, and in this case it's like right at the back, and you start working below that LUT. So you should work under the LUT. So in this case, I managed to like transform it into Rec 709 with the film LUT emulation, print film emulations on it. So what I can do is that I can add a node and handle my exposure before the LUT, and I can use the photometrically accurate exposure control, and that is in the HDR global exposure, and just increase like 0.5. And by doing this in a timeline level, it means that all my clips will get the same look. And I can use the clip level to handle the exposure difference. So for example, in this clip, it's slightly a little bit more overexposed. So I can just probably reduce the highlight a little bit, bring down the gain a little bit. And in this case, it looks okay-ish. So what I want to show before is that I want to show to Greg that how you can soften your image as well. And there are plenty ways of that you can do that, Greg. And one way that you can do is that first you can soften the color. And by softening the color, the chrominance informations of the image, you can soften the image, like make it look soft. And you can do that by going to LAB and just disable channel 1. It means like only the 2A and B channel is active. And you can go to the blur tools and then just go there and pump it up. But then, let me see if there's a effect at all. It's very subtle, if you see. And then from there, you can use the key output to adjust how much effects that you want. Like there would be like one way to do that. Yes, Dr. Sasi?
The difference in the picture that you have, the picture has depth of field in it, and the background is blurred.
Yeah.
The clip that we saw was completely sharp all over the place, no depth of field. And when you apply now some blur on something that is completely sharp, it flattens the picture even more. And what you want normally to have is either a mask that you use for middle crown and background as a separation when you don't want to do depth of field effects in 3D, or you render directly 3D with depth of field, or you use DaVinci Resolve 18 and you create with artificial intelligence.
Or, yes. And there is another way that you can do that. And
there will be more or.
Yeah, exactly. It's endless, but that's the beauty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or you can simply use the blur tools like here, and instead of like blurring everything, I think it's like normally like really nice if you have like a very video-y type of footage, or for example, if you shoot something in your phone and you want to reduce the sharpness, this is like the method to do that as well. But for 3D, for 3D, like exactly just like what Dr. Sasi said. So in this case, if I want to soften it a little bit, I can just like unlink red, green, and blue, and I can just soften the green and the blue just a little bit, not too much. Why not red? Because normally that's where the skin tone live in the red channel, right? So in this case, it's just a very minute blur. But then instead of just doing this, I will use my key output again and then just use it sparingly. So by doing that, I can soften my image just a little bit and without affecting the skin tone in the clip.
Nice.
Okay. Always keep the eyes sharp.
Exactly.
Always keep the eyes sharp. Yeah.
So that is like film emulations kind of thing inside Resolve. But sometimes the thing that I normally get like questions a lot is that how do you do that inside, like if you don't use Resolve, if you use Premiere Pro, for example. Yeah. And in that case, I would like to point you out to Magic Bullet Looks, because you can also do that with Magic Bullet Looks. And just a short, how do you call it, demonstrations on that is that, you know, in Premiere Pro, if you have clips like this, and if you want to do a little bit of like film emulations, I think Magic Bullet Looks is your friend. And you can go to Effect and type in Bullet, and you have all the Magic Bullet Suite tools. Drop in Magic Bullet Looks, and then hit Edit Looks. And what's nice is that in this new Magic Bullet Looks version is that now you can work in ACES in Magic Bullet Looks. So for example, if you're in Premiere Pro, now you're able to work in ACES using the Open Color IO inside Magic Bullet Looks. So in this case, I need to point out that this is a clip coming from ReLoc-C, and I want to output it in Rec 709, and I want to preview it in Rec 709 as well. And if I want to do like film emulation thing, if I want to emulate the film print, I can do that. And here, using the film print tools, I have 4 different, scanned of print film. Kodak 2383 to Fuji 3521. And if I want to, I can also emulate the film negative. And here I have like 22 different scan of film negative. And now, just because we can, there's also halations tools. You can even emulate the halations, the film halations, using the halations tool. So for example, if I want to go crazy, go super 16, like that. And if I want to spice it up a little bit, maybe if I wish, I can add like optical diffusions at the front and maybe change it into ProMist 1.4. And yeah, and if I want to warm it up a little bit, just add a color blend filter like that and just use it sparingly.
And always point to the presets.
Exactly. And by confirming, I will be, done already. And then of course, that's just the look part, and you can, you can use another tool like Colorista to adjust or to match the clips, right? And if you like this kind of look, you can also save it. You can also save it, give it a name, select the folder you want. And then it will appear in the looks sections here, if you want to. So that's a brief, teaser to Magic Bullet Looks.
And you did it beautiful. It looks really nice. That's nice.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
So you can use it in the clip level, or if you want to, if you work with a lot of different clips, you can just create an adjustment layer. And instead of doing that in clip level, you can drop it in the adjustment layer. And then now all the 3 clips under this adjustment layer will share similar looks. Of course, the exposure is now different. Now you have to bear in mind that there are differences in exposure. So the way I like to handle that is probably just dropping in Colorista.
Yeah. And start matching. Start the hardest time.
Exactly. And then start the process. And probably here I will just add exposure 0.5 or maybe 1. And that's it. And just by doing that, or maybe here, add the temperature a little bit.
Which brings us to our starting point where we talked before, that we have an engineering, a conceptual or continuity idea, and an artistic idea. And that is a triangle that I think we should have always in mind when we start something.
Yes, Dr. Hassi, please talk more about that. We would love to hear that.
I think we all have a different point where we're coming from our ideas, from the projects, where we want to go. But what we have all in common is that we want to communicate with our audience. And to do that means, of course, we need to know a little bit about them or have an idea where they are. But how to get into that whole idea of changing with colors our expression and our communication has different levels. And as we have seen before the show, someone is more in the ingenuity area where we just have nodes and expresses with parameters. Some others want to put maybe more the continuity in effect, or And from my point of view, I would say I look at this stuff. I try to understand what was the intention of the cinematographer, of the editor, of the director, and which concept would I come up with to support all of that, which is, of course, what everyone else does in the triangle. How to support the outcome, how to get synergy in the whole thing, instead of just saying, yeah, I have here and look, and I dump it on top of that, and it looks cool, and hopefully it will work. And what we miss in that whole approach is, of course, that we express ourselves, that we bring ourselves in, because presets can be dumped by everyone on top of it. We don't need high qualified people for that. But in the moment you can analyze the whole scene and you see, this is how it progresses inside of the edit. Like in Diego's clip, where I saw the night scene, there was only one scene where the lights in the background are on. That's maybe a pivot point where we understand finally who he is, and then he goes pretty much into more private things when he goes home and talks to his wife and so on. So the whole portrait has a progress. There's a story in it, maybe a 3-act or whatever. Where I always think everything that has a 3 in it, toss it away. It's not good for you. But try to understand what you're doing. Try to understand which options you have, and that's technical, that's aesthetical, and maybe artistically, and all together. And how is your approach, Diego or Max? How to you start a project? I know there's always, you want instantly a grading, instantly a result, but I think to analyze first what is given and to let it grow where you want to go is very important.
Yes, and in some ways, like you say, it's like you have to communicate. That's the thing. That's the thing. For example, if you are selling, I don't know, let's think a beer. You're selling beer or pasta. You have to make the pasta or your beer that the people like it. Because if not, will be something yours. And we're doing this because we want that the people see what we're doing. So that's one thing. That's one thing. I can say that I'm a technical person a lot, so I look at a lot of match, and I used to grade soap operas, so I was doing matching like a lot. So I always look at matching. But at some moment, we were talking before. Yes, at some moment it was like, okay, there is something beautiful in the image that you create. So continue with that. But always think you are creating or you are grading a scene. You are not grading an Instagram clip or an Instagram image. This is a group. And the reason we are here is because we like motion image.
Yeah, exactly. Creating unity. A look has to serve the whole project. It's not just serving the one clip, make it looks good. I mean, it may work in a commercial,
Instagram.
like Instagram, for example, or a shot of like commercials with only a couple of clips. But if you are like serving a long form or a drama or a documentary or something with story, probably the look itself, it has to like strengthen the story itself, because it's one of the tool that cinematographer or the filmmaker use to convey the story and emotions to the audience, right?
Yeah, and to lead the audience eye where they have to look.
And that is the big part of
in your clip. So sorry.
No problem, man. No problem.
No, it's just excitement. Sorry, it's not to run over you.
No.
In the clip that we discussed today, I had often the wish to put a gradient in, where the clouds are in the background. They are so bright, they take my attention, and I'm not listening to him. And so to dampen them a little bit was always where I tended to go. But to get continuity in the whole thing is then already a little bit difficult.
Yes. And speaking of that, I think Dr. Sassi mentioned that it's actually what I normally do in a lot of my clips. Is that, let me show you my my timeline again.
We haven't discussed vignetting in the whole thing because that
Yeah.
centers the view very strongly. Some people hate it, some people love it. And where are you with that?
That's a great point. That's a great point. What do you say, Max? What do you think about it?
I say use it. It's a tool. I mean, but use it wisely, of course.
Yeah.
I use it. I use
Yeah.
it. I use it. I feel that when I use a vignette, it's like I'm I'm getting something. I'm getting something. I'm getting something. And as you said, you have to lead the light to where you want it. At some moment, with this VR and so on, I was thinking at the beginning they were saying, okay, let's do fiction in VR.
Hmm.
And I was saying, that's hard. Because what the cinematographer is doing is that focusing the view to where he wants the audience to see. But when you have in VR, he wants to see everything.
Yes.
So that was like a problem.
That's another challenge, right? Yes.
Yes.
Through that.
So here I like vignetting, but yes, do it subtle. Do it subtle.
Yeah. The way
In the
I
moment you
approach
notice it, it's gone. Yeah.
Yes.
the way I like to approach like this power window is like I like to treat them as a set extensions, like what Dr. Sassi said is like to bring the attentions to like the subject of the story. So for example, if my subject is like this kid in the middle, so probably what I normally do is that I put a gradient window, I turn on highlights, make it very soft, something like this, like that, and just from there I go to my gain and just reduce the gain just a little bit. And here it's like it's similar to like putting flag in the scene. And then probably here as well I put like the other way around, and same story, reduce the gain a little bit. So all in all, it makes the center of the screen a little bit brighter. So I do believe that reducing the amount of the light instead of like increasing it, it's always like a better approach first. Unless it doesn't work, then you have to increase it. So work with what you have first, and then after that, when there's a dead end, then increase it. And the way I like to use vignette is that I like to use it like very subtle. And like for example, let's do a vignette, something like that, and make it like very soft. And then what I normally do is that I have like this node active and I press Alt or Command. What is Alt in a make options? Oh, so what I do is that like I have like the area outside of the vignetting. So in this case, it's just like the border. You can also do that by using this button here. But I like to have options, so I have both inside the vignette and outside the vignette. And what I normally do is that instead of reducing the gain, what I can do is also reducing the texture. So in this case, I put the midtone detail into -50. So if you see that, the edges of the clip is getting like a little bit softer.
Yeah.
So and
It blurs normally, yes.
yeah, it blurs a little bit. It's softened a little bit, and I can pair that with a highlight. Either I want it to make it darker or leave it as it is. So yeah, that's another tips on vignetting.
And with your blurring, you get more a lens artifact, which gives, when we go back to the 3D scene, a more natural look, because that is not given with a Cinema 4D camera.
So Greg, that's another tip for you, Greg. If
that's a great tip, actually. That's a great tip. Yeah. They always look at. I mean, you say it. Always look at how the camera capture in real, and try to replicate that in 3D.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
the thing that we mentioned before in color grading. Pay attention to the contrast level, pay attention to the saturations level, and pay attention to the textures on your images. That's like, do you have too much textures? Maybe you want to reduce it, or do you have less texture and do you want to increase it? That's the thing. You dance between them, right, Diego?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
So, well, I think that's it for today. Before we go on and say bye-bye for today, I would like to remind you that, if you haven't submit your grade, it means like you don't get this t-shirt, the one that you see on the screen. You can still get another t-shirt, but it's not limited editions. It is available in the Maxon merch store, and the link is in the chat if you want to go there and follow the link and use the code that you see in your screen, Redshift Challenge, all in the capitals, and you can get one t-shirt from Maxon.
One t-shirt per month, and you have to pay the shipping. For euros
Exactly.
or
The
$3.99
the shipping, I think it's round about $4, Dr. Sass.
Yeah.
It's not so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to check out what's going on in Maxon, we host like a lot of events. I think the whole week is pretty much like packed. And at the moment, there is 3D motion show going
was
on.
yesterday?
It was yesterday. Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to watch the recording, however, you can go to Maxon YouTube channel, and then you can watch the recording. And tomorrow, Hasi and Seth is back, and they will be back with a really nice content tomorrow. So make sure
go free.
Nice.
Make
That's
sure
great.
you go there and check out what Hasi and Seth is up to. And shout out to
as
Hashi.
usual.
That's nice.
And there's also Redshift Challenge, demystifying post-productions going on. And next Thursday, if you want to know more about ZBrush, and if you want to ask the trainer about ZBrush, you can join us in the Ask the Trainer, and we'll be talking about ZBrush next week. So that's
Will Paul there?
today. I think so. Yeah. Paul Gaburi will be there. So
Yeah,
it will
I
be,
can't
it will
wait.
be
Sorry.
nice.
There you go.
He is great.
Nice.
He's
Just
great.
Yeah. Paul will
Don't
be there.
miss that. Yeah.
That's great.
If you're into ZBrush and if you want to learn sculpting, I think this is like a really nice session for you to interact with Paul directly.
That's a masterclass in itself.
That's awesome. I will be there. Sure. That's nice.
And that's it. And I would like to thank you so much for today. Thank you, Brian Smith, for submitting your grade, and then thank you, Greg, for submitting your nice animations film. And I'll contact you. I'll contact you per email to contact you to ask you about your home address. I'll send you the T-shirt. Don't worry, I won't send anything else. Just the T-shirt. Right? And thank you so much to participate in the event and in the show. And then we'll be back again in 2 weeks' time. And I hope to see you there in 2 weeks' time. Right? Thank you so much, Diego.
Thank
It's
you
been
so
great
much,
session.
Max.
And
Yeah.
thank you, Dr. Sassi, as usual, for coming up with such a nice tips and questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
Yes.
take care, everyone. I hope everyone stay safe and healthy until next 2 weeks. We'll see each other again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Ciao.
Bye.